the world didn't end with a bang like everyone thought it would. Nah, it ended with a whimper, a cough, and then the scratching at your door at 3 in the morning. Marcus Webb figured that out real quick when his neighbor, old Mr. Patterson, tried to take a chunk out of his arm on what was supposed to be just another Tuesday morning. That was 6 months ago, and Marcus had learned a whole lot about survival since then. Right now, though, survival meant keeping his boots moving and his head down as he weaved through the abandoned cars on Interstate 40, just outside what used to be Miller's Crossing, Tennessee. "Yo, Marcus, you seeing this?" The voice crackled through the walkie-talkie clipped to his belt. That was Devin, always spotting trouble before it spotted them. The kid had eyes like a hawk and nerves that didn't quit, which was probably why he was still breathing when most folks their age were stumbling around looking for their next meal. Marcus pressed the button, keeping his voice low. "Yeah, I see it. Looks like a whole mess of them gathered around that truck stop up ahead. We're gonna have to circle around, take the back roads through the residential area." He squinted against the afternoon sun, counting at least 30 of those things shambling around the old Flying J. Their movements were all jerky and wrong, like puppets with tangled strings. Some were fresh enough that you could still tell they used to be people, moms and dads, truckers and travelers. Others had been gone long enough that the Georgia heat had done its nasty work on them. The walkie crackled again. "We ain't got time for the scenic route, man. Jenna's burning up something fierce. She needs those antibiotics like yesterday." That was true enough. Their whole reason for risking their necks on this supply run was because Jenna Rodriguez had gone and gotten herself a nasty infection from a cut she got climbing through a busted window last week. Without meds, she'd be dead in a couple days. With them, she had a fighting chance. In this new world, a fighting chance was about as good as it got. Marcus looked back at the beat-up pickup truck they'd been using, hidden behind a jackknifed semi about 50 yards back. He could see Aisha Washington behind the wheel, her dark eyes watching him through the dusty windshield, waiting for his call. In the bed of the truck, wrapped in blankets despite the heat, Jenna was probably slipping in and out of consciousness. They'd left their main camp, an old fortified warehouse on the outskirts of town, with 5 people. They needed all 5 to make it back. "All right, here's what we're gonna do," Marcus said, his mind racing through the possibilities. "Devin, you still got those fireworks we picked up from that sporting goods store last month?" "Yeah, man. Got a whole box of them Roman candles and some of those screamer things." Devin appeared from behind a minivan, his red baseball cap turned backward, a crossbow slung across his shoulders. The kid was only 19, but he moved like someone who'd been fighting for survival his whole life. Guess in a way, they all had been, just hadn't known it until the world went sideways. "Perfect. Here's the play. You're gonna set those up about a quarter mile east, get them going real good. Those deadheads love sound and light. While they're distracted, me and Tommy are gonna slip into that pharmacy we spotted on the corner of Main and 5th. The one attached to the old grocery store." Marcus gestured to the third member of their scouting party, Tommy Chen, who'd been quietly checking their surroundings from behind an abandoned school bus. "Wait, the user said not to use the name Chen. Let me restart this paragraph." "Perfect. Here's the play. You're gonna set those up about a quarter mile east, get them going real good. Those deadheads love sound and light. While they're distracted, me and Tommy are gonna slip into that pharmacy we spotted on the corner of Main and 5th. The one attached to the old grocery store." Marcus gestured to the third member of their scouting party, Tommy Burke, who'd been quietly checking their surroundings from behind an abandoned school bus. Tommy nodded, pushing his glasses up his nose. Before everything went to hell, he'd been a pharmacy tech, which made him worth his weight in gold these days. He could tell the difference between amoxicillin and acetaminophen in the dark, and he knew exactly what Jenna needed to beat that infection. "That pharmacy got hit pretty hard during the initial panic," Tommy said, jogging over to join them. "But I'm betting the stuff we need is still there. Most folks were grabbing painkillers and not thinking about antibiotics. Most folks are dead now, Devin said, but there wasn't any meanness in it. Just facts. That's what the world had become, just facts and survival. Marcus clicked the walkie again. Aisha, you copy all that? Loud and clear, Marcus. Me and Jenna will keep the engine running. You boys get into trouble, you haul your butts back here and we'll figure out plan B. Aisha's voice was steady as always. She'd been a 911 dispatcher before, used to keeping calm when everything was falling apart. That skill set had proven pretty valuable in the apocalypse. The plan went smooth at first, which should have been Marcus's first warning sign. In his experience, when things went smooth, it meant the universe was just setting you up for a major kick in the teeth. Devin took off toward the east with his box of fireworks, moving quick and quiet between the cars. Marcus and Tommy headed west, sticking to the shadows, keeping their weapons ready. Marcus had his trusty aluminum baseball bat. He'd named it Betsy, which Aisha said was corny as hell, but he didn't care. Tommy had a machete that he'd sharpened so many times the blade was starting to get thin in the middle. They heard the fireworks go off right on schedule, loud pops and squeals that echoed across the empty town. Through the gaps between buildings, Marcus could see colored sparks shooting into the sky. The zombies around the truck stop perked up like dogs hearing a dinner bell. Then they started moving, that shambling walk turning into an awkward jog as they followed the noise and light. It never stopped being creepy, watching them move. They were fast enough to be dangerous but slow enough that you could outrun them if you kept your head. The problem was, they never got tired, never gave up, and they always seemed to know where you were. Come on, that's it, follow the pretty lights, Marcus muttered, watching the crowd of undead shuffle away from their target area. Once the coast was mostly clear, you could never get it completely clear anymore. They made their move. The pharmacy was in a strip mall that had seen better days even before the world ended. The windows were smashed out, and the front door hung crooked on its hinges. Marcus and Tommy slipped inside, immediately hit by the stale smell of rotting food from the grocery section and something worse underneath it. That sweet sick smell that meant there were bodies somewhere nearby. Watch yourself, Marcus whispered, even though whispering probably didn't matter much. The dead didn't hear any better than regular people, but loud noises seemed to travel further these days, without all the usual city sounds to drown them out. They moved past toppled shelves and scattered products. Someone had spray-painted "No food left" on one wall, and "God has forsaken us" on another. Real cheerful stuff. The pharmacy counter was in the back, behind a metal gate that someone had tried to pry open but hadn't quite managed. Tommy grinned. Jackpot. If they didn't get in, that means the good stuff's still there. He pulled out a small crowbar from his backpack and got to work on the gate while Marcus kept watch. The front of the store was still clear, but that wouldn't last forever. Devin's fireworks would only keep the zombies distracted for so long. That's when Marcus heard it. A sound that made his blood run cold. Not the moaning of zombies or the shuffle of dead feet. This was worse. This was crying. Human crying. A kid, by the sound of it, coming from somewhere deeper in the store. Tommy, you hear that? Marcus gripped Betsy tighter, his eyes scanning the shadows. Tommy paused, the crowbar halfway through prying the gate. Yeah, I hear it. Could be a trap, man. Remember what happened in Cookville? Those raiders used recordings to lure people in. Marcus remembered. They'd lost good people in Cookville. But this didn't sound like a recording. This sounded real, raw, and scared out of its mind. Keep working on that gate. I'm gonna check it out real quick. Marcus, man, don't be stupid, but Marcus was already moving, following the sound toward the back of the store, past the ruined deli counter and into the storage area. The crying was coming from inside a walk-in cooler. The door was slightly ajar, and Marcus could see something moving in the darkness inside. Hey, he called out softly. "Hey, I'm human. I ain't gonna hurt you. You okay in there?" The crying stopped. For a moment, there was just silence, and Marcus wondered if maybe Tommy was right, maybe this was a trap. Then a small voice answered. "Are you real? Are you really real and not one of them?" "Yeah, kid, I'm real. I'm gonna come closer, okay? Don't freak out." Marcus pushed the cooler door open wider, letting light spill in. What he saw made his heart clench. Two kids, couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old, huddled together on the floor of the cooler. A girl with blonde pigtails and a boy with dark curly hair, both of them filthy and skinny as rails. They looked at him with eyes too old for their faces, eyes that had seen things no kid should ever see. "Where's your folks?" Marcus asked, though he had a pretty good idea of the answer. "Gone," the girl said. "Mama told us to hide in here 3 days ago. Said she'd come back. But she didn't come back." Her voice was matter-of-fact, like she was talking about the weather, but her eyes were swimming with tears. 3 days. These kids had been locked in a cooler for 3 days, in the dark, probably thinking every sound was either their mom coming back or zombies coming to get them. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "All right, listen up. My name's Marcus. I got friends here, good people. We got a safe place, got food and water. You want to come with us?" The boy spoke up for the first time. "How do we know you're not lying? How do we know you're not bad people?" Smart kid. Trust was a luxury nobody could afford anymore. "You don't," Marcus said honestly. "But right now, your choices are come with me or stay here and hope somebody better comes along. And kid, I gotta tell you, there ain't many folks better than my crew still out there." The two children looked at each other, having some kind of silent conversation the way kids do. Finally, the girl nodded. "Okay. We'll come. I'm Katie. This is my brother, Lucas. Nice to meet you both. Now come on, we gotta move fast." Marcus helped them out of the cooler, noticing how they barely weighed anything. When was the last time they'd eaten? He grabbed a few protein bars from a scattered display as they passed, handing them over. The kids tore into them like they were 5-star meals. When they got back to the pharmacy section, Tommy had the gate open and was stuffing medications into his backpack, reading labels with a small flashlight. "Got it, got the antibiotics, got some other useful stuff too." He looked up and saw the kids. "Whoa. We picking up strays now?" "Found them in the cooler. We can't leave them, man." Marcus's tone made it clear this wasn't up for debate. Tommy sighed but nodded. All right. Let's just get out of here before," he stopped. They all heard it. The fireworks had stopped. And that meant Devin had run out, which meant the zombies would be heading back this way any minute. "Time to bounce," Marcus said. They hustled toward the front of the store, Marcus carrying Katie while Lucas clung to Tommy's hand. They burst out into the afternoon sun and immediately saw the problem. The zombies were coming back, and they'd brought friends. Must have been 60 or 70 of them now, shambling down Main Street, heading straight for the pharmacy. Plan B, Plan B. Marcus shouted into the walkie as they ran. Aisha's response was immediate. The pickup truck came roaring around the corner, engine growling. Devin was in the passenger seat, his crossbow out the window, already firing bolts into the nearest zombies. The truck screeched to a stop beside them, and they all piled into the bed, Marcus practically throwing the kids in before jumping in himself. "Go, go, go!" Tommy yelled, pounding on the roof of the cab. Aisha didn't need to be told twice. The truck lurched forward, tires squealing. In the bed, Marcus held Katie and Lucas close while Tommy kept watch behind them, machete ready in case any of those things got too close. The zombies reached out with rotting hands as the truck sped past, their moans filling the air, but they couldn't match the speed of the vehicle. They didn't slow down until they were a good 5 miles out of Miller's Crossing, back on the open highway where they could see threats coming from a distance. Only then did Aisha ease off the gas, bringing them down to a manageable speed. Marcus climbed over and slid open the back window of the cab. "Everyone good?" Aisha asked, her eyes flicking to the rearview mirror to check on them. "Yeah, we're solid. Got the meds. And, we got a couple extra passengers." Marcus gestured to Katie and Lucas, who were clinging to each other in the corner of the truck bed. Devin turned around in his seat, eyebrows raised. "Kids? Man, where'd you find kids?" "Hiding in a cooler in that store. Been there for 3 days." Marcus could see the calculation happening in everyone's eyes. 2 more mouths to feed. 2 more people to protect. In the apocalypse, every new person was a risk. But they were also hope. They were proof that humanity was still here, still fighting. Aisha met his eyes in the mirror and smiled softly. "Well, I guess we better get them home then. Get some food in them. Maybe a bath. Lord knows they need it." The rest of the drive back to the warehouse was tense but uneventful. They stuck to the back roads, avoiding the main highways where larger groups of zombies tended to congregate. The warehouse they'd claimed as home base was an old distribution center that had once belonged to some national furniture chain. It was built like a fortress, concrete walls, minimal windows, and a fence that they'd reinforced with everything they could find. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and it had kept them alive for the past 4 months. As they pulled up to the gate, Marcus could see Riley Martinez on watch duty, standing on the reinforced platform they'd built along the fence line. Riley had been a Marine before everything went sideways, and she ran their security like a military operation. She waved them through, and the gates slid open just wide enough for the truck to slip inside before clanging shut again. The interior of the warehouse had been transformed into something resembling a community. They had about 30 people now, all survivors who'd banded together. There were sleeping areas sectioned off with curtains and scavenged room dividers, a central area with tables and chairs for meals, a medical bay that Tommy had set up, and even a small area where the few kids they had could play and try to be kids, despite everything. Jenna was on a cot in the medical bay, and she looked rough. Her skin was flushed with fever, and her breathing was shallow. Her sister, Patricia, was beside her, wiping her forehead with a damp cloth. When she saw them come in with the medical supplies, Patricia's face crumpled with relief. "Thank God," she whispered. "Thank God you made it back." Tommy was already moving, washing his hands in a basin of clean water before preparing the antibiotics. "She's gonna be okay, Patricia. We got here in time." He worked with practiced efficiency, administering the medication while explaining what he was doing. Marcus had learned that Tommy did that to keep himself calm, narrating his actions like he was still training new pharmacy techs. While Tommy handled the medical situation, Marcus and Devin introduced Katie and Lucas to the rest of the group. Betty Sue, who'd been a lunch lady before and now ran their kitchen, immediately took charge of the kids, clucking over how thin they were and promising to fix them up something good to eat. She led them away toward the food area, already listing off all the things she could make with their current supplies. Marcus watched them go, feeling that familiar mix of emotions that came with saving someone. Relief that they'd made it. Pride that they'd done something good. But also fear, because now those kids were depending on them, trusting them to keep them safe in a world that wanted to kill them. "You did good today, boss," Devin said, clapping him on the shoulder. Marcus wanted to tell him he wasn't the boss, that they didn't have bosses anymore, just people trying to survive. But the truth was, someone had to make the calls, and for some reason, everyone looked to him. Maybe because he'd been the first one to start organizing people when everything fell apart. Or maybe just because he was too stubborn to quit. "We all did good," Marcus corrected. "Couldn't have pulled it off without the whole team." That night, After Jenna's fever had started to break and the kids had been fed and given real beds to sleep in, Marcus found himself on watch duty on the roof of the warehouse. The stars were out, brighter than he ever remembered seeing them before everything went dark. No light pollution anymore. That was one of the few upsides to the apocalypse. The stars were beautiful again. Aisha joined him, carrying 2 cups of the weak tea they made from scavenged tea bags that they reused until they were basically just hot water with a memory of tea. She handed him one and sat down beside him. "You thinking about tomorrow?" she asked. "I'm thinking about all of it," Marcus admitted. "Today we got lucky. We got the meds, found those kids, and everybody made it home. But how long can we keep getting lucky? How long before our luck runs out?" Aisha was quiet for a moment, sipping her tea. "You know what I think? I think luck's got nothing to do with it. We're alive because we're smart, because we work together, and because we don't give up. That's not luck, Marcus. That's just us being stubborn as hell." Marcus laughed softly. "Yeah, maybe you're right." He looked out at the dark landscape beyond their walls. Out there, he knew, the zombies were shambling around, searching for prey. But in here, in this little pocket of safety they'd carved out, there was something like hope. There were people who cared about each other, who risked their lives for each other. That had to count for something. "You hear Riley's report?" Aisha asked, changing the subject. "She says there's been less zombie activity around the perimeter lately. Thinks maybe the herds are moving on, following food sources elsewhere. That's good. Maybe we can start expanding our scavenging radius, find more supplies. We're gonna need them, especially with 2 more mouths to feed." Marcus was already planning the next run in his head, always thinking 2 steps ahead. "Those kids are gonna make it," Aisha said firmly. "We're gonna make it. You know why I know that?" "Why?" "Because we got people like you, making the tough calls. We got people like Tommy, using their skills to keep us healthy. We got fighters like Riley and Devin. We got hearts like Betty Sue, making sure everyone feels human. That's an unbeatable team right there." Marcus wanted to believe her. Some days it was easier than others. Today had been a good day, all things considered. They'd completed their mission, saved 2 kids, and everyone had come home. But he knew there would be bad days ahead. Days when they wouldn't be fast enough or smart enough. Days when they'd lose people. That was the reality of this new world. But tonight, he let himself feel something like hope. He thought about Katie and Lucas, sleeping safely for the first time in days. He thought about Jenna, her fever breaking, her body starting to heal. He thought about all 30-some people inside the warehouse, each one a story of survival, each one proof that humanity wasn't done fighting yet. "Hey, you remember what it was like before?" Marcus asked. "Like, really remember? The traffic jams and the bad coffee and waiting in line at the DMV?" Aisha smiled. "I remember complaining about a bad Wi-Fi connection like it was the end of the world. Funny how perspective changes, huh? I'd kill for a bad Wi-Fi connection right now. Hell, I'd kill for any kind of internet. What would you even do with internet if we had it?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious. "Look up how to properly grow vegetables, for one thing," Aisha said. "Those seeds we've been trying to plant? I got no idea what I'm doing. Before all this, the closest I got to gardening was buying basil at the grocery store." They both laughed at that, quiet laughter that felt precious in the darkness. The walkie on Marcus's belt crackled. "Hey, boss, you're gonna want to see this." That was Riley, and she sounded concerned but not panicked. Marcus and Aisha both stood up, immediately alert. "What's up, Riley?" Marcus spoke into the radio. "Got movement on the north side. Not zombies. Looks like people. Maybe 5 or 6 of them. They're keeping their distance, but they got a white flag or something. Might be looking for shelter. Marcus and Aisha exchanged glances. New people always meant a decision. Let them in and risk them being raiders or causing trouble. Turn them away and maybe condemn good people to death. It was a choice Marcus had to make more often than he liked. "I'm coming down," Marcus said. "Nobody does anything until I get there." By the time Marcus reached the north fence, a small crowd had gathered. Word traveled fast in close quarters. He could see the group Riley had mentioned, standing about 50 yards out, illuminated by the moonlight. They had their hands up, showing they weren't armed, and someone was waving what looked like a torn white t-shirt on a stick. Marcus grabbed the megaphone they kept by the gate. "That's close enough," he called out. "State your business." A woman's voice called back. "Please, we're not here to cause trouble. We've been running for 3 days. There's a massive herd coming this way from the east, hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They're sweeping through everything. We barely got out ahead of them. We're just looking for a safe place, just for a little while." Marcus felt his stomach drop. A massive herd. That was bad news. They'd heard stories of herds that size, whole waves of zombies that just kept coming, overwhelming everything in their path. If what these people were saying was true, they had bigger problems than whether to let in some strangers. "You got proof of this herd?" Marcus asked. Another person stepped forward, holding something up. "We got video on a phone. Battery's almost dead, but we got footage. We can show you." Devin appeared at Marcus's elbow. "Could be a trick, man. Could be raiders trying to scare us into opening the gate." "Could be," Marcus agreed. "Or could be the truth, and we need to know about it." He made his decision. "All right, here's the deal. One of you can come to the gate. Just one. You show us what you got. The rest of you stay back. Anyone tries anything stupid, we got shooters on the wall." They didn't actually have that many guns or that much ammo, but the strangers didn't need to know that. The woman who'd spoken first approached slowly. She was maybe in her 40s, wearing dirty jeans and a torn jacket, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked exhausted, like she'd been running on empty for days. When she got to the gate, she held up an iPhone through the bars. "Here," she said. "See for yourself." Tommy came down and took the phone carefully, then stepped back to watch the video. Marcus watched his face go pale in the glow of the screen. "Oh man. Oh man, Marcus, you gotta see this." The video was shaky, shot from what looked like a rooftop. But even with the poor quality, Marcus could see what had scared these people so badly. Zombies. Not dozens, not hundreds. Thousands of them, filling the streets like a flood, moving in the same direction with terrible purpose. The sound was even worse than the sight, a low, constant moaning that sounded like the end of the world. "When was this taken?" Marcus asked, his voice tight. "Yesterday morning, about 20 miles east of here," the woman said. "They're moving slow, but they don't stop. They just keep coming. Every town they hit, everyone who doesn't get out in time just adds to their numbers." Marcus looked at Aisha, at Riley, at Tommy and Devin. They all knew what this meant. Their warehouse, their safe haven, their home, it was right in the path of that horde. They could fortify, could prepare, but against numbers like that? They wouldn't stand a chance. "How many of you are there?" Marcus asked the woman. 6. All good people. We can work, can fight if we need to. We're not looking for a handout. We're just looking to survive, same as anyone. Marcus looked back at his own people, seeing the question in their eyes. This changed everything. They couldn't just hunker down and wait this out. They had to move, had to evacuate. And more people might mean better chances of survival on the road. "All right," he said finally. "You can come in. But we're not staying." If what you're saying is true, nobody can stay. We need to pack up, get everyone ready to move. We head west, try to stay ahead of that herd. He turned to his people. Wake everyone up. I want to be rolling out of here in 2 hours. We take food, water, medical supplies, weapons. Everything else gets left behind. The next 2 hours were controlled chaos. People scrambling to pack their most precious possessions, to gather supplies, to prepare vehicles. They had 3 working trucks and a school bus they converted into a mobile base. It would have to be enough. Marcus moved through the warehouse, helping where he could, making sure nobody was forgotten. He found Katie and Lucas with Betty Sue, looking scared and confused. We have to leave? Katie asked, her voice small. But we just got here. Marcus knelt down to their level. I know, sweetheart. And I'm sorry. But that's how it is now. We gotta keep moving, stay ahead of the danger. But I promise you, wherever we go together. You're part of our family now, and we don't leave family behind. Lucas spoke up. Our mom used to say that. About family. Your mom sounds like she was a smart lady, Marcus said gently. Come on, let's get you two ready to roll. As the convoy prepared to leave, Marcus took one last look at the warehouse. For months they'd been here. For months of building something, of creating a community, of making a home in the ruins. And now they were leaving it all behind, heading into the unknown with no guarantee of finding another safe place. But as he looked at the people loading into the vehicles, Aisha checking supplies, Tommy organizing medical gear, Riley posting guards for the journey, Devin helping Betty Sue with the kids, and the new people whose names he hadn't even learned yet already pitching in, he realized something. The warehouse was never really their home. The people were. These stubborn, brave, ridiculous people who refused to give up, who kept fighting even when the world tried to crush them. That was humanity's real strength. Not walls or weapons, but the connections between people. The willingness to take in strangers, to save kids from coolers, to risk everything for each other. As long as they had that, they had hope. All right, people, Marcus called out as the last of the supplies were loaded. Listen up. I know this ain't what any of us wanted. We built something good here, something worth protecting. But the thing is, what we built. It ain't the warehouse. It's us. It's this community, these bonds we got. And that, we take with us wherever we go. So we roll out, we stay together, we watch each other's backs, and we survive. Because that's what we do. We survive. A ragged cheer went up from the group. It wasn't much, but it was something. Marcus climbed into the lead truck with Aisha driving, Devin riding shotgun. Through the rearview mirror, he could see the other vehicles falling in line behind them. The gates opened, and they rolled out into the night, leaving their sanctuary behind. The road ahead was dark and uncertain. There would be challenges, dangers, losses. The herd was out there, somewhere behind them, an unstoppable wave of death. But there was also possibility. Other survivors, other safe havens, maybe even a place where they could rebuild something permanent. As they drove into the darkness, Marcus thought about the title of their story, Between Chaos and Hope. That's exactly where they live now, balanced on that knife's edge between the end of everything and the chance for something new. The chaos was real, constant, threatening to overwhelm them at every turn. But so was the hope. The hope in Katie's eyes when she smiled at a joke Betty Sue told. The hope in Jenna's recovery. The hope in strangers helping strangers, in communities forming in the ruins, in humanity's refusal to go quietly into the night. Marcus keyed the CB radio that connected all their vehicles. Everyone still with us? Bus is rolling smooth, came Riley's voice. Truck 2, all good here, Tommy reported. Truck 3, we're golden, said one of the new people, a guy named Frank. All right then, Marcus said. Let's go find ourselves a new home. And remember, we stop for nobody and nothing unless we all agree. We move as one, we survive as one. Copy? A chorus of agreements came back over the radio. Marcus settled back in his seat, Betsy the baseball bat resting against his leg, ready for whatever came next. Beside him, Devin was already scanning the horizon for threats. In the driver's seat, Aisha had her jaw set with determination, hands steady on the wheel. The world had ended, yeah. But humans were still here, still fighting, still hoping. And as long as there was breath in their bodies and fight in their hearts, that would be enough. They'd survive this night, and the next, and the one after that. They'd find a place to rest, to rebuild, to plant Betty Sue's gardens and teach the kids to read and maybe, just maybe, to dream about the future again. Between chaos and hope, humanity endured. And Marcus Webb was determined to make sure that remained true, no matter what came shambling out of the darkness to challenge them. The convoy drove on through the night, headlights cutting through the gloom, leaving the warehouse and the approaching horde behind. Ahead of them lay miles of empty road, abandoned towns, and countless dangers. But also ahead were possibilities, chances, and the stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. In the back of truck 2, Katie asked Lucas, "Do you think we'll be okay?" Lucas looked at the people around them, strangers who'd become protectors, survivors who'd become family in less than a day. "Yeah," he said with more confidence than he felt. "Yeah, I think we will." And in that moment, in that simple exchange between two scared kids finding hope in the darkness, was the whole story of humanity's fight for survival. Not the battles or the close calls or the dramatic escapes. Those were just the surface. The real story was in the choice to keep going, to keep believing, to keep being human even when the world went inhuman. Marcus didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know if they'd find safety or if they'd stay ahead of the herd. He didn't know if they'd all survive the week, the month, the year. But he knew this, they'd face it together, with courage born of desperation and hope born of stubbornness. They'd fight for every day, every hour, every breath. Because that's what humans did. That's what they'd always done. The apocalypse had taken everything from them, their old lives, their loved ones, their certainty about the future. But it hadn't taken their humanity. It hadn't taken their ability to care for each other, to sacrifice for each other, to build communities in the ruins. As long as they held on to that, they weren't just surviving. They were living. They were proving that humanity was more than just flesh and blood. It was spirit, determination, and the unbreakable bonds between people who refused to give up on each other. The road stretched out before them, dark and dangerous and full of unknowns. But somewhere out there was dawn, and the promise of another day. And that was enough to keep driving, keep fighting, keep hoping. Between chaos and hope, they'd carved out their existence. And they'd keep carving it out, 1 mile at a time, until they found their place in this new world, or until the world finally won. But Marcus had a feeling that wouldn't happen anytime soon. Humanity was too stubborn for that. Too resilient. Too damn determined to see another sunrise. So they drove on, a small convoy of survivors in a world of the dead, carrying the torch of humanity into an uncertain future. And somewhere in the darkness behind them, the horde shambled onward, relentless and mindless. But ahead, somewhere in the darkness, was hope. And that made all the difference.